Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything for February 4th. Coming to you live from the CrossFit Linchpin private track Facebook group. Excellent questions today. It's a rest day. I love rest days. And let's dive right in. I've got my pages of notes and we should be good to go. So, you knew that it was coming if you've been following CrossFit news. And John D asked the question, so here we go. Thoughts on Mat Fraser's retirement? And I love Mitchell chimed in afterwards. Well, there goes all the AMA time. So, thoughts on Mat Fraser's retirement. I'm going to try to be brief on this. So, Mat Fraser, if you're unfamiliar with it, I'm sure you will be by the time this comes out. You know, he's won the games 5 times. He's never gone to the games and not stood on the podium, even when he was a complete and utter rookie. He is tremendous. And let me do the caveat that let me sing Mat Fraser's praises without anyone making some unnecessary comparison to, well, you're saying that he's better than Froning. Like, they didn't compete for the overwhelming majority of their career. There wasn't the overlap there, so I'm just talking about Fraser. He's fantastic. He's incredible. We may never see somebody like him ever again, quite frankly, in the sport. He's going to leave a hole in the sport. Now, next year, whoever wins, they're going to have to live under that weight of, well, yeah, you won the 2021 CrossFit Games, but you won because Fraser wasn't there, right? So come on. You're gonna hear that. And that's unfair. And whoever does win next year, I hope they know, like, look, it's a different year. Mat Fraser was not there. So whoever wins is the winner. But Mat Fraser's career is tremendous. And not only his career and his accomplishments, he was the perfect storm, in my humble opinion. There's a lot that goes into being a champion of anything. I don't care if you're playing chess. And I think Mat Fraser had all of the attributes and characteristics perfectly lined up, from the age that he was to his parents were Olympians, by the way. Didn't come from bad stock, if you will. But then his ability between the ears to train, to dedicate, to understand what true fitness was and work his weaknesses almost like no other. And, it's so easy to get lost with looking at what he snatches or something like that. I mean, because those are tremendous events that draw huge crowds and people cheer. But Mat Fraser and other true champions, I don't think what people understand is their ability to grind and to suffer. I mean, like, lungs bleeding, conditioning sessions from hell, suffer. I think you could get a lot of people to come and join them on lifting days. What those people put themselves through to have the lungs and stamina that they do, I don't think that aspect is truly understood or respected by a lot of people. And their ability to do that, not just once, but to do it, understand how bad it hurt, to literally spend some time in the fires of hell, and then to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to make a career out of just standing and hanging around in the fires of hell with my lungs burning. This is what I'm going to do for a living, week after week, month after month, year after year. You're somewhat of a lunatic. And Mat Fraser was that beautiful lunatic that had all of those attributes, from physical capacity to mental toughness to discipline to, he was not married, didn't have kids, so he could literally dedicate every moment of his waking life to being the fittest person on earth. And that's why I say he was kind of a perfect storm, and we watched him just decimate the landscape for years, and that will be a really hard act to follow for whoever it is. So I wish Matt nothing but the best. I can't see him just sitting idly on his hands. Doesn't strike me as that sort of individual, so I'm sure he's cooking something up or going to dip his toe in some other water. I don't know. Maybe he'll enjoy his retirement for a bit, but I see him getting bored. So we'll keep our eye on Mr. Fraser. Okay, so that was the first one. Next one, not a question, but just a wonderful hello and a courtesy from Mr. Benjamin G, coming to you from France. He just says, no question, just sending good thoughts and vibes to this amazing community all over the world. Right back at you, brother. Right back at you. All right, here we go. Luis V, your question was reposted by somebody because, you know, it's bedtime over there, and you are good to go. Your question is going to get answered. Let's see. I'm just scrolling down to find it. All right, here we go. Luis V, how to build a better engine, aka metabolic conditioning. Want to add it, you know, but don't want to be overtrained, but help improve the base of the pyramid. And if you're unfamiliar with the pyramid that he's talking about, it's the theoretical hierarchy of the development of an athlete, where the base is nutrition, then over that you have metabolic conditioning, and then you have gymnastics, then you have weightlifting, then you have sport. So Luis, great question. Building a better engine. So first of all, I would say if you have not, I would encourage you to read the CrossFit Journal article entitled Metabolic Conditioning. And that is from CrossFit Journal issue number 10, which came out in June 2003. I think you'll find it excellent. So I think adding in some extra conditioning is a great place to start. Now the question becomes, and we'll dive into some other details here, how much is too much if you're adding in some extra sessions? I wish I could give you a mathematical answer, but sadly I cannot. It's different for every person. That's the God's honest truth. So only you will know how much is too much, and you will probably only find out when you step over the line, realize that you've made a slight bad mistake, and then reel it back in. So a quick story just to highlight what I'm talking about is, you know, I've met several CrossFitters, and we heard these stories all the time during level 1 seminars and whatnot. You'll have somebody loves CrossFit, and let's just say they love on the side road biking, road cycling. It's their passion. Their life revolves around it. Nothing makes them happier. They're going to keep doing it. They want to do it as much as possible, and then they want to know how much is too much. How many miles can I ride every week without it having it negatively affect my fitness? And the question is, we don't know. But at some point in time, and again, it's different for each person, but if we're using road cycling, somebody might be able to ride 20 miles a week, and it's like it never happened. 30 is fine. 40, then maybe at 50, they're starting to notice a negative effect of them being a bit too tired, not recovering as well, walking into the gym with less motivation and enthusiasm. They're doing some benchmark workouts. You know, you don't PR every single time you do every workout. We know that. So, you know, you don't get a PR, whoop-de-doo. Maybe you just had a bad day. It's an off day, you know, you're just training. And then another benchmark comes up and you fall short. And another benchmark comes up and you fall short. Now you're like, okay, now maybe something's going in the wrong direction. And you're tired, so on the heavy days, your lifts are going down. Well, now you're probably overdid it with the road cycling. Let's rein it back 10 miles, 20 miles, and find what is that delicate balance for that individual that they can pursue what they want to pursue on the side and not have it negatively affect their work capacity across broad time and modal domains. And so, Luis, that's what you're going to have to do in finding how much extra conditioning, extra metabolic conditioning can you add to your life without having it detract from your overall fitness. And that's a moving target. So what I would recommend, just start small, right? Just do one extra session a week. Do that for maybe 3 weeks, and then honestly assess. And of course, the Beyond the Whiteboard app and their ability to track data will be very helpful in doing this. Did that one extra session positively impact you, negatively impact you, or is it totally like neutral? You don't notice it whatsoever. Do that for a few weeks. Give it a few weeks. Then if you'd like, bump it up to 2 sessions a week. Stay there for a few weeks. Reassess. I think that's probably a sweet spot personally, but again, each person's different. if you just still feel fantastic, maybe you go to 3 sessions a week. I would tend to think that's a bit too much, but maybe your body will respond quite well to it. Again, you won't know until you try, but just be very honest with yourself, get the ego out of the way, and if it isn't a good call, rein it back. So that's going to be the experimentation you're going to have to do to find out how much is too much. Now, what sort of training you would want to do, and again, read that metabolic conditioning article, but in an oversimplification of anaerobic training and aerobic training, I would encourage you to have most of your sessions be of the anaerobic variety. And with that, if we're talking about running, I would say 200s, 100s, and 50s. Meter sprinting is what I'm talking about. Those would be the primary basket that I think would deliver a lot of goods to you. The next basket or next level, where still very important, but I would say the 200s, 100s, and 50s. I mean, even the shorter the better, the 100s and the 50s, that's your primary. The next one would be your 400s and 800s. And then your tertiary, your third level after that, would be your mile and beyond, 5Ks and etc. And when we're talking about that, we're obviously talking about aerobic training. So I would want the bulk of what you're doing to be anaerobic. And you could take that same, even though I'm talking about running, when I'm talking 100 meters, 200 meters, and 50s, take those same time domains and apply them to what you would do on the rower or some sort of air bike. And that's where I think the bulk of it should be. If you're a beautifully balanced athlete and you feel that your running, your rowing, and your air bike work is all pretty even, then you could implement these sessions each week evenly across all of those different devices, if you will, bike, rower, and running. If you truly feel that one of those three is no kidding where you are deficient, then I would bias your training a little bit towards that one that you honestly believe is the one that you're not that great at, until they all kind of rise together. Track your data meticulously. When do you do the sessions? What did you do for the sessions? What were your times on them? Was it a maximal effort sort of a thing, or was it just sustaining a relatively high level of intensity? Whatever it happens to be, track your data so that you can move in the right direction. And then also track your rest times as well. Track everything. And we recently had a great conversation about this as well, that right now is available on video on the Linchpin YouTube channel under Linchpin Conversations. I don't think I've made it just audio yet into a podcast. It will be eventually. But if you missed it, go back and listen to Linchpin Conversations number 140, and that talks about rest during interval training and all that kind of good stuff. So I think you'll be solid. And I'm very curious to hear how it goes for you. So I think it's going to be exciting. And that relates back to just what I said about Mat Fraser. Everybody wants to chase the barbell, but I don't think people realize those tremendous athletes, the time that they spend on conditioning sets them apart. They're conditioning freaks. All right, here we go. Next one we have here is from Jesse H. Relatively simple question, fun question. Won't take but a second here. Since it's in most of your videos, what type of coffee do you drink and how do you take it? Black, cream, sugar, etc. I've got my cup right here. Jennifer, one of our leaders of the limited equipment crew, Zombie Apocalypse team, although she recently acquired a barbell. How dare you, Jennifer? Just kidding. Obviously, it's fantastic. But Jennifer says she's going to guess that I take my coffee black like his soul because of all the workouts that he makes us do. And Jennifer is 100% correct. Black coffee, no cream, no sugar. And as a matter of fact, I did not drink coffee for the overwhelming majority of my life. So I know that makes me a bit of a statistical anomaly. I've only been drinking coffee for probably 5 years. And people who know coffee and love coffee, I don't want to call them coffee snobs, but maybe passionate coffee enthusiasts. I have heard that if you like dark roast coffee, which is what I like, dark roast, that means you have an unsophisticated palate, because dark roasts are generally burnt or something like that, and the true coffee aficionados like the light roast. So I wouldn't be surprised if I am a bit of a coffee Neanderthal. I like dark roast black coffee. and I like it hot. So that's that. Hunter. Good question coming up here from Hunter. Here we go. Hunter asks, how would you direct an athlete that wanted to be primarily an ultra marathon runner, but wanted to include these workouts, meaning CrossFit style workouts, Linchpin workouts? I used to be a member of a box and had a bodybuilding style of lifting background, but in the last 3 years, I've had my interest point towards mountain trail running. I'm a newish member to Linchpin, and I'm finding myself, even when scaling, destroying my legs and screwing up my 4-day-a-week running schedule. I love lifting for all the right reasons and don't want to give it up, but I have a laser focus on distance running right now. Is anybody in the same boat? Any suggestions, etc.? And it was his first post. So Hunter, congrats. Excellent post, excellent question, and some of it will relate back to what I just answered there with Louis, so keep that in your hip pocket. So my first thing that I would say to you is, if your legs are that destroyed, okay, and then if you're new to CrossFit style workouts, it can seem like an onslaught on the legs. And that was certainly my experience, and I was new to it as well. Even if you're scaling, if you're feeling as that fatigued and tired and everything after the workout, scale even more. Okay, so whatever you're doing, first of all, scale it even more, 2 or 3 times as much as you're scaling. And don't forget that scaling not only has to do with reducing reps or loading, but you can also just scale by reducing the intensity. So, for an easy example, if you do an unbroken 100 meters of walking lunges, you're probably going to have some really sore legs. But if you do 100 meters of walking lunges total, you do 10 meters, rest 1 minute, 10 meters, rest 1 minute, and you do that until you've done 100 meters. Okay, yes, person A and person B both did 100 meters of walking lunges on the same day, but the person that just pushed through and did it unbroken is going to feel it far differently than the person who did the same amount of work but allowed themselves to do it in a much slower time. And so you might be able to slowly start to condition and strengthen your legs by scaling not only the loading and rep scheme, but also by scaling the intensity. And then little by little, as you start to build up some tolerance and some conditioning to what we're doing, then start to gently increase the loading, gently increase the pace at which you're doing it, all that good stuff. So I would highly encourage that first, because I've met over the course of my time doing all this stuff plenty of people who were runners in their primary love, and like distance runners, like you're an ultra marathoner, but even a 5K runner, if that is your lifeblood. And I've met people that put food on the table by running 5Ks and 10Ks. That was what they did for a profession. Well, the last thing that you want to do is put on 15 pounds of weight, right? Even if it's muscle, because that's 15 pounds that you have to carry over the course of that 5 or 10K. However, that can be what can pop into your head. But on all my experiences with these individuals, even if they did put on a little bit of weight, that muscle was actually beneficial to the endeavor that they were pursuing, even though it was long distance running. And what you might be able to do, Hunter, is increase your capacity, depending upon your body type and whatnot, without even adding some potential extra weight that you have to carry around. And not that I'm the world's greatest example, but I'll use myself as an example. Before CrossFit, I weighed anywhere from, my weight would fluctuate a bit, but I weighed anywhere from 180 to 185 pounds pre-CrossFit days. Now, 16 years into CrossFit, I weigh anywhere from 180 to 185 pounds, literally the exact same body weight, even though I've been doing CrossFit for 16 years. When I first started CrossFit, again, same body weight, I could not deadlift 300 pounds, did not have the capacity. I think my max was like 275 or something like that. Now, fast forward to where I am now. We recently, I think the most I've pulled recently was like 450 and decided to stop there because I was like, yeah, I'm good. Probably have a little bit more in the tank. Maybe could get to 475, but didn't want to push it. But let's just call it 450. So point being, I put at a 275 previous max to say 450 now, I put 175 pounds on my deadlift, increased my 1 rep max 175 pounds over the course of the last 16 years without putting on 1 additional pound of body weight, which is really nice, right? Because that's not any additional weight that I have to carry around on any runs, but that is a stronger and healthier skeletal system, musculature, the whole 9 yards, that whatever I happen to be doing will only be of a benefit to me. So if we can get you going down that path, Hunter, where you're strengthening your body and exposing yourself to all the wonderful variants and potentially some deficiencies that you didn't even know you had because of the variance that CrossFit offers, and do it in a way through intelligent scaling that doesn't leave you feeling all beat up and allows you to gradually increase your capacity and ramp up your loadings and your intensities when you're ready. And I would encourage you to be patient on that. I think it will only benefit what you're doing for sure. And if, like you said, your primary focus is ultramarathon running, not CrossFit, then you will probably have to twist the dials a little bit, kind of like I was talking about with Luis, to see how many CrossFit sessions a week can you do, intelligently scaling, and not have them negatively affect what your primary passion is. And I think that's really cool, because so frequently we deal with people whose their primary passion is CrossFit, right? And we always say you can use CrossFit Linchpin to make whatever, if you have a different passion, it can be that strength and conditioning base to help you excel in that other passion. And that's the road that I think you could go down, even with the ultra marathon running, which I think is profoundly cool. And I would be really curious to hear you continue to update us on your personal journey, the scaling that you have found to be effective, so on and so forth. But I think you'll be able to ride that line really well. And I can't remember if I said this or not, even though you are a long distance runner, I would also encourage you to read that metabolic conditioning article that I mentioned to Luis. And I think if you're not doing it right now, even though you're running super long as your primary role, sprinting will be your friend, just because of the ability for shorter time domain, higher intensity efforts to yield capacity, and those would be anaerobic efforts, to yield capacity over to the longer time domain, lower intensity aerobic efforts, which is what your primary focus is. The anaerobic stuff will also very much be your friend. So I think that could be great for you. Okay, next question is from Chris L. A fun one, a simple one. What is my favorite CrossFit style shoe? This is going to be crazy, I guess, but I've only ever had a pair of Reebok Nanos on my feet. So I've never had another one. So that's my favorite one by default. They treat me quite well, but I've never had a Metcon on my foot. They could be fantastic. I just don't know. I've never had a Noble on my foot. Years ago, before there was like dedicated CrossFit shoes, a lot of old school people would wear Chuck Taylors, and then the shoe that kind of evolved from beyond the Chuck Taylor was a lot of people love the Innovates, and I had several sets of Innovates that I really enjoyed, quite frankly. But yeah, as of right now, I guess I'm the Nanos, but I'm open to trying other ones for sure. Dan H asked a quick question as well, which was about, let me see here, stand by. So many questions, it can sometimes take a second to find where it was. He basically asked about, oh, here we go. How does analyzing the Beyond the Whiteboard data guide the programming? All great stuff, thank you. So I can go into Beyond the Whiteboard, under one of the coaching tools that I have, and just check and look backwards and see what we've been doing through Beyond the Whiteboard. It's a tremendous resource. I don't want to say it doesn't guide the programming. To me, it serves as a wonderful and highly useful sanity check, so that when I am looking backwards, which helps me plan where we're going forwards, I can make sure that where I hoped that we would go, we actually went. I hope that makes sense. And also the data that everyone puts in, the postings that we have in the Private Track Facebook group, the times that are put in on the Instagram page. Like, there's so many different sources of data out there, and all of them kind of come together in this little synergistic fashion to ensure that things are going in the direction that we want. So it's a fantastic resource, and I look at it darn near every single solitary day, quite frankly. Let's see. Okay. Final question here is from Philip. Philip I. Good question, as always. Let's see. The question is, where does mobility come into play in the CrossFit theoretical hierarchy of the development of an athlete? Which is cool because we mentioned that in a previous question today. Isn't this a missing component of the pyramid? I'd put mobility right above nutrition in terms of importance. How can you do anything if you can't move or get into that position? Wondering what your thoughts are here. Did CrossFit miss a crucial component, or am I thinking about it the wrong way? First of all, two things. Number one, you're not thinking about it wrong at all. It's extraordinarily important. Second of all, you're only going to be able to see this if you're in the Private Track Facebook group. Philip, I got to tell you, I don't know if you made that drawing image that you presented with your question, where you had the old theoretical hierarchy of the development of an athlete period, and then the new one that you made there, to help give your question a visual. But it's fantastic. I don't know if you're a graphic artist by trade, or I'm just a rock when it comes to using computers, but I was very impressed. Anyway, no, flexibility and mobility, extraordinarily important, and some other people there, such as Chris and Catherine, chimed in and spot on that flexibility is addressed in the 10 general physical skills. And those 10 general physical skills, you're only as fit as you are well-rounded and have the capacity across all 10 of those, and a glaring deficiency in one of them will hold you back, and that glaring deficiency could be your flexibility. And you're exactly right. And if you're unfamiliar with that article, or anyone listening or watching, I would encourage everyone to go read the What is Fitness article in the CrossFit Journal from October of 2002. Fantastic, groundbreaking article. What's great is the pursuit of CrossFit, the pursuit of constantly varied functional moves at high intensity, steeped into that, written into that, is a pursuit and a need of a particular or a certain range of motion, or flexibility, if you will. And you will not achieve a high level of success without it, because exactly what you're saying, you have to be able to get your body into these positions, or you're not going to find success, for example, in the overhead squat. You just can't, quote unquote, try harder or try to lift more. If you can't get your body anatomically into the proper position to support that loading overhead over your center of base, you're not going to have a good overhead squat. And if you've got tight ankles or tight hips or poor shoulder flexibility, the overhead squat's not going to be your friend. So what's cool about CrossFit actually pursuing functional movements, multi-joint movements, complex movements, is they're almost a pre-screener as to whether or not you are or are not where you need to be with regards to your flexibility. And if you are, fantastic. Even just the pursuit of these movements, you're practicing the overhead squat, you're practicing a ring muscle up, you're practicing a kip swing and opening and closing your shoulders, you're practicing the front squat and trying to drive your elbows up. Most people, I shouldn't say most, but like where I was previous to CrossFit, I was not pursuing functional movements, and so I wasn't even practicing getting my body into these positions. And practicing functional movements can help you improve your positioning, but through just repetition, right? Practice, practice, practice in your warm-ups. Start doing your overhead squats, start doing your front squats, start trying to walk on your hands, do your ring muscle-ups, do your kip swings. That will, what you do all the time, you get good at. That will help you achieve that range of motion. Now, it may not get you all the way there if you have some very significant impediments and a little extra love on the side or some extra attention to an area that you have a bit of an issue with certainly could be a good idea. But like I said, back in the day, pre-CrossFit, if I had a flexibility issue, I wasn't even aware of it, and I didn't even care about improving it because the movements that I was doing they weren't demanding of a significant range of motion. In my pre-CrossFit days, I was more of a traditional bodybuilding style, Monday and Thursday, chest and tri, Tuesday and Friday, back and bi, Wednesday and Saturday, legs and, what am I missing? Shoulders, sprinkling some abs. Well, most of that was, machine-based movement. Most of that was single joint movement, be it concentration curls, a pec deck, bench press, which is obviously a great movement, but you're not probably going to identify if you have a significant, most people have the range of motion necessary to do a bench press, is what I'm saying. Now you try to do a shoulder press and you might find out that something is sticky, but a bench press, you may not find it out. Leg press, leg extension, leg curl. I'm not the world's most flexible person, but I could do everything that I needed to do with that previous style training just fine, and I never would have identified myself as being tight or having any sort of, don't need any extra flexibility work, any extra stretching. All of a sudden, you ask me to do even a good air squat. So now I'm not doing the leg press machine, like just a good air squat. Feet firm on the ground, hip crease below the top of the knee, torso nice and vertical, not an immature squat where you're leaning forward. I look like it was day one in the gym for me, which in a lot of ways it was. And so now I realize, just the basic air squat is the foundation of everything that we're going to do in CrossFit, and I'm struggling with move number one. I got some work to do, or I'm not going to have success in this CrossFit game. And now you put even an empty barbell or a PVC pipe in my hand and say, okay, that air squat, let's see an overhead squat. And now I am acutely aware of range of motion limitations that I have. And if I do have those limitations and I want to have success in CrossFit, I'm going to be practicing those movements and working on my body to improve them, because you are correct. You will not achieve the level that you want to achieve if you have some restrictions in those areas. But then you could also make a very significant case that, you don't have to be hyper flexible and Gumby and be able to perform in Cirque du Soleil, right? Which I think some people feel can take it a bit too far. If you have adequate range of motion for a beautiful overhead squat, squat snatch, ring muscle up, front squat, there's the general things that we do, you could make a really solid case that you have ample range of motion for whatever it is that you're going to face in life. So the movements themselves demand it, and if you do find something that is a sticky point for you, it will serve you very well to help remedy that sticky point, no doubt about it. Okay, we'll end with just a small handful of some of the cool things I have grabbed from the private Facebook group. First one is from Mads H. He talks about Helen. It says, in today's video, Coach talked about how you can improve your Helen time if you run a little faster. I know nobody wanted to hear that, but it was the truth. Well, I did that, and then died on the third round of the pull-ups. The last 8 reps were one at a time, and usually pull-ups are in my wheelhouse. I guess not today. However, I will take the 30-second PR that he got on that. So congratulations. And that's good on you, Mads, for doing that. You actually ran hard enough that it affected something else which is traditionally in your wheelhouse, and that hard work paid off. So super proud of you. This one is from Andy T, and I wrote the little screenshot I just put, making fitness a priority. So let's see what we have to say here. After the birth of my daughter 4 years ago, I really struggled to have consistency in my health and fitness. Having a job where I was on a plane every month and trying to be an engaged dad meant fitness took a back seat. Then COVID happened, and the stresses of parenthood and work amplified tenfold. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Then I found CrossFit Linchpin, made a commitment to nutrition, and found a balance in life that a few years ago wasn't even possible. So thanks to Coach and this amazing community for helping make that happen. And today I'm pumped to finish Chelsea, something that merely 6 months ago was a pipe dream. So Andy, congratulations for finding that balance, for making fitness a priority again. and for completing Chelsea. And if anyone doesn't know what Chelsea is a beautiful, classic CrossFit workout that might be easy to ignore because it's so darn hard. You know Cindy, AMRAP 20 minutes, and a round of Cindy is 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. That's one round of Cindy. What Chelsea is basically you do one round of Cindy every minute on the minute for 30 minutes, and you hold that pace. So if you can hold the pace, you'll do 30 rounds of Cindy, and that's no joke. So Andy, congratulations. All right, 2 more. This one I entitled Gas Station Fitness because I loved it. This is also from Mads. Mads, I didn't realize I grabbed 2 of yours. On the road all day long, stopped at a gas station and did 5 sets of 50 air squats, put on quite a show and got spicy real fast. So what I love about that was the no equipment option on a particular day that was a lower body squatting lifting day. And obviously he was on the road, life got away from them, could have very easily said, not gonna do it, just ain't gonna happen today. But literally at a gas station, looking like one of these amazing CrossFit lunatics that we love so much, made a choice. It's not gonna take a lot of time, 50 air squats for 5 sets, probably resting a minute or 2 between each, and fitness was achieved, so good on you. And here's this, we'll end with this last one from Tyler S., entitled CrossFit Saved My Life. So here we go. It's a couple paragraphs, but worth the read. Short story, CrossFit saved my life today. Long story, I'm a sheriff's deputy working patrol in the northeast of Wyoming. This morning, multiple vehicles were stolen from a neighborhood in town. One of the vehicles was observed approximately 30 miles north of town with the suspect trespassing on someone's property. 2 deputies went north to contact the suspect. Upon contacting the suspect on the highway, he led them on a high-speed chase back towards town. I found a bridge in the highway a few miles north of town. The safest place to park my vehicle off the roadway and out of sight of the suspect was approximately 200 meters short of the bridge. I got out of my vehicle, grabbed my spike strips, which weigh about 30 pounds, and sprinted to the bridge, so there's an odd object carry, set up the spikes on the bridge shortly before the suspect vehicle arrived. Upon seeing the spikes, the suspect vehicle swerved down into the ditch, crossed the creek bed, and continued up the ditch directly towards me. With limited options, I turned and ran up a steep embankment approximately 40 feet to avoid getting struck by the vehicle before it got back on the highway. Anyone who has done Linchpin programming for a minute is familiar with the experience, whether it be burpees or 100-meter sprint repeats or intervals on the bike where you have to move like the devil is chasing you, and this was my moment. I have no doubt in my mind that the person I was prior to starting CrossFit would not have made it to the bridge to help my brothers or up the hill in time to avoid getting struck by that truck. I am blessed to have the privilege of being part of this community. It has truly changed my life and kept me around for another day. How incredible is that real life story? Absolutely fantastic. So that's why we do what we do. Enjoy your rest day, everybody, and until next time.